What's up YouTube? Leather Jacket John here and welcome back to my channel. Today the video is going to be about Buco. As many people know, Buco is one of the more iconic and popular of all of the American vintage leather jacket companies, whether it's motorcycle, military, civilian. They're definitely the most popular and the most collectible. Partly in reason because of the Rin-Tanaka books, which came out in like the early 2000s. After that, Buco kind of just really exploded. So this video, I'm going to go over just a brief history. I'm going to go over some of my jackets. I obviously don't have them all, but I guess one of the main things I'm going to do is just kind of go over the D Pocket series, which is, although they have other D Pockets, but the one I'm wearing right now is a mid-50s horsehide Buco J24. So there's a J21, 22, 23, and then the J24. I'm going to kind of go over that and then kind of a little bit of the other models that I have. Again, I don't have them all, but I have quite a few. So again, just a brief history. I'm just going to go over my jackets. The one I'm wearing is, like I said, it's a mid-50s horsehide J24. It's kind of like my beater one. It's the one that I, like to wear the most. Has a lot of, patina on it. It's kind of worn. It's kind of beat up. These, as far as vintage jackets, these are the kind of ones that I like to wear the most. When I do get, mint condition ones, I kind of like to baby them. I kind of like, just to keep them for like a collection. And so without further ado, I'm going to go take the phone off of the tripod. Or you know what? Let me go over the history first. So Buco started in 1933 as the Joseph Buegeleisen, I think that's how it's pronounced, or maybe it's Buegeleisen. I'm not really sure. But let's just say the Joseph Buegeleisen Company, or Buco for short. So they started in 1933. They were doing motorcycle accessories, and they were providing, Harley-Davidson dealerships and Indian dealerships throughout the Northeast and the Midwest, in the West as well. But I think that came a little bit later when they started producing jackets and became really popular. They were motorcycle parts and accessories first, and it was only until like the mid 40s, like 1946, 47, when they started producing motorcycle jackets. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna go over, my jackets. And again, the main kind of thing I'm gonna do with this video is just go over kind of like the line and the evolution of this, which is their most iconic. It's one of the most just iconic jackets of all time. Their classic, D Pocket jacket. Again, this is the J24, but there's different ones. So all right. So as you can see here, I got them kind of all laid out on the ground and a few over there. So I'm gonna start. So the D Pocket, get this out of the sunlight. The D Pocket, as kind of we know it, started as the J1. Now this one right here is my earliest one. This is the J21. The J1, let me get this over here actually. The J1 is essentially the classic D Pocket jacket, but without this hand warmer pocket. So almost like a Beck 333. And that was the very, very first one. Those were produced very early, probably 1947, 46. They had the very first label, which I do not have, which was a white Buco label. This right here is the earliest label that I have. The green label, used 1948 to 1952. So this right here is the earliest one that I have. Again, this is the J21. The main way to differentiate between a J21 and then pretty much everything else is on the back, they have only one map pocket, whereas all the other ones have two. So starting with the J22, they had two of these map pockets. Now you'll see this one has this very cool kind of like cotton plaid lining. This is like the first iteration of the J21. Other iterations, you'll see a J21 that is pretty much like this. It has the second generation label, and it'll have this exact black and red buffalo plaid wool lining. This one happens to be just a standard J22, but you'll also see like the second version of this J21 with this label and lining. Now, the J21, most of them that I've seen are just extremely short. Now, with the J21 and with the J22s, they made them in short lengths, which depending on the size can be anywhere from 20 to 21 inches, to the standard, which starting around 1953, it just became standard that it's a 24-inch length total. So on the back length is more like maybe 22 and a half, 23. But they were advertised as 24-inch length. They're not very, very short. The standard ones, these are kind of like the standard ones. They're not very short for motorcycle jackets if you compare them to other late 40s and 50s motorcycle jackets. But these J21s are very short. This is a size 40 and it has like a 20-inch back. It's really, really short. It's kind of cool that these J21s also featured these studs, whereas other later ones, it had these little studs, where the other ones had just the dome stud. And that's kind of something that you'll see on almost all of them. So again, J1 is this, but without the hand warmer pocket. This is the J21. Now let's move on to the J22. So I have a couple versions. This really is just your standard J22. So the deep pocket, the hand warmer pocket. Really, if you see any Buco with a wool liner and then this second generation label, they're going to be a J22. Again, there are the rare exceptions where it's this jacket but with one map pocket, and those are the last versions of the J21, but this is your standard J22. Here's another one with a rare liner. So it's still a black and red wool, but it's a houndstooth pattern. And it's actually a very rare liner. Let's look at the back. So, as you can see, the back does have those two map pockets, and therefore it is a J22. Same deal with this guy. Again, this guy is a little bit rarer because of that liner. So I said that this label, this green second generation label, 1948 to 1952. In 1953, they switched to the third generation label, which is this. Now, you'll notice that it also has the red and black buffalo plaid wool liner. It was in this year, in 1953, where they moved on, again, switched to this label, the third generation, but also switched to your black. Initially, it was a black rayon quilt lining, and then it switched to a nylon. This, however, is the last version of the J22. I've heard some people call this one a J23. That is incorrect. J23, it clearly says in the ads that it has a black rayon quilt lining. So essentially, whenever you see a jacket with this label, but with this liner, that's a J23. These, again, are the transitional J22s. Again, the transition between this and this. These two are the same, exactly the same jacket. These are pretty much 1953, 54 to 1956 horsehide Buco J24s. This is like the classic. It was pretty much what I was wearing, or what I am wearing. These are, again, your classic J24s, but yeah, J22. These are two J24s, both with the original collars. You'll see belt loops, so you could buy them back in the day. You could, sometimes they were advertised as coming with the mouton collar, but you could buy them separately. These are both original Buco collars, and you could also buy them with the belts. Here's one example of a later J24, which I'll get into, but with the belt and the collar. That one also has the belt and the collar. But these are two really good examples of just your standard horsehide Buco J24. You'll see the note. You'll see the different colors of the collar. So this is black, brown. They also had, I believe it was like a very dark blue. Both in really good shape. This one is a little bit more worn. What's funny, these are both size 38s. Now, by the way, the color of this was just faded. So you can see it was sun faded. This was the original color. It is black, and it just faded to this kind of, I guess, I don't know, like a rust almost kind of a color. But what I started to say, these are both size 38s. One thing, I mean, I have a lot of Bucos. One thing I've learned is that they vary quite a bit, whether it's, you know, the position of the pockets, the quality of the construction, like the stitching neatness, but also the sizing. Like this is 38, it's kind of big on me. This one is perfect. So it's kind of funny. I guess it's just, you know, they were made by different people. You know, the quality of the hides also vary wildly. So this one is a little bit more kind of, I don't want to say thinner, but it's just a little bit more pliable, where this one is just like a lot thicker, a lot beefier. I mean, this one is fairly well grained. So something to kind of keep note, and I get a lot of questions from people, you know, kind of asking me about the sizing of these. And, you know, I mean, if you have a feel for them, if you've owned a few of them, you go by the tag size, but you really just have to go by measurement size. Because again, they vary wildly in the leather quality, in the construction neatness, and in the sizing. So mid-50s horsehide Buco J24s. This label from 1953 to 1957 is when it was mostly used. The first use of steer hide, which this is steer hide, was in 1954 with the J81. However, it was just for, it seems like that was offered in 1954 as like a budget option to this. The J81 is essentially, these are two J82s. The J81 is this exact jacket, but without these studs right there. That's a J81, and it came out in 1954. This is an example of a J82, probably a year or two later. But 1954 was the very first use of steer hide. So Buco was a little bit ahead of the curve with the use of steer hide, because most companies started using steer hide in the late 50s, in the very late 50s. But if you look at the Tanaka books, it kind of says 56, 57 is when this label was pretty much, they stopped kind of using horsehide, and they were only using steer hide for their jackets. So this one is a pretty special one. So this is a late 50s, early 60s J24L. So we've seen J24s, J22s. I do not have a J23, J21. This is a J24L. L stands for long. All the jackets, all these deep pocket series came with this kind of a back. The L, again, stands for long. In the front, really, the only thing that's different is that there's a snap closure right here, which was not featured on the J24s and J22s, as you can see. But really, it's the back design that was really different. This is the first time we see this kind of a back. This is what they advertised in their catalogs as the stay down back. And it's longer. You can see it has kind of like that ducktail. And yeah, stay down, you know, that was so that, you know, air kind of wouldn't go underneath and, you know, kind of get you cold. And they are longer. They are definitely longer. This is like a 25, 26 inch back. These guys are like a 23 to 23 inch back. So like an 1.5 to 2 inch difference. But I mentioned this one was a special one. As you can see, it has the collar, the original collar, and an original belt. And you can see some studs here. So it's special because A, it's just in mint condition. Almost new condition. I bought it from the original owner. She said she bought it in the early 60s. Yeah, it was a woman. It's a size 36. You can just see how nice and vibrant, you know, like the liner is, the tags, everything, the leather. This is, you know, the steer hide also kind of varied wildly. This steer hide just really just, I guess T-cord very quickly. You know, the top coat would come off super duper quick. And this one, I mean, there's no brown coming through at all in the jacket. So she said she bought it in the early 60s, brand new, with the collar and the belt. I'm not going to take the belt off now, but the belt is mint. You can, if I flip it over, the Buco markings are still like super bright and vibrant on the back of this belt. These are all her pins that she put on. This is where she's from, Stockton, California. You know, you got some pretty cool AMA buttons. So yeah, it's a special one. You know, the fact that it's like so brand new. I bought it from the original owner. She barely wore it. And so just to have that kind of provenance on a jacket is really special. And it just, you know, it's a size 36. It fits me perfectly. So this one right here. Now, so I mentioned this label. Came out in 1954 with, again, popularized use around 1956, 57. That's the 4th tag. This is the 5th tag, the 5th Buco tag. It says Buco tanned horsehide with kind of like a weird looking horse if you compare it to their regular horsehide label. This was something that only was out for 1 year. In 1959, they produced this model, which is the J24H. So they were only producing it in steer hide, pretty much from like 1956, 57. And then in 1958, they brought back the horsehide. And this label is super duper duper rare. You just really don't see this label, the 5th generation horsehide label. The horsehide, if you read the Tanaka books, and you know, I can attest to that with this one, it's not the quality of these older ones, especially these older like J22s. I mean, the horsehide is just spectacular. Now, they, like I said, they do vary kind of wildly. I apologize about the sun, by the way. I just can't do this outside. It's way too hot. So yeah, it's not the quality of the older horsehide. It does have the later stay down back. But, you know, it's still pretty good quality. It's just some of these old Bucos, people always ask me, are they worth it? And some of these old Bucos, they might not be the most neatly constructed, but, to be honest, neither are most vintage jackets. But the horsehide, just in general, the horsehide you get, the vintage horsehide you get from like the late 30s, all throughout the 40s, and up until like the mid 50s, it's so quality. It's really kind of hard to say one is better than the other. And Buco is really just up there with the best of them. So before I get into other models, which I showed briefly the J82, Buco, so as you can see, this is an Allstate label. Buco also made their jackets for Sears and Roebuck, and Allstate was a Sears and Roebuck brand. So as you can see there, it says sold only by Sears and Roebuck. And it's your this would be like the J22 equivalent. There's also these jackets with just your regular, black nylon lining with the Allstate label, much like this. So yeah, this one is from probably 50 or 1949. Has an early 50s Talon label, zipper. So yeah, Buco also made these jackets for Sears and Roebuck. So again, this would be what you would call like a J22 equivalent. I do have the catalog page from Sears of this, and they called it a cycle rider jacket, just a horsehide cycle rider. No real name or model number. So, while these guys, we can identify them by their model number, J21, J22, J24. This guy would be the J24L version. Again, it has the snap, has the stay down back. So this would be the J24L equivalent, although it is horsehide. Now, you'll see this also in steerhide as well. So yeah, Buco made jackets, and they only made jackets for Sears, as far as I know. As far as I know, they did not make it for anybody else. So, a couple of other models. This one right here is a mid-50s J27 policeman jacket. People also kind of confuse this one sometimes for the PJ27, which would be this jacket, but without the chest pocket, and then this big flat pocket would be up here with nothing down here, and then this same pocket. That would be the PJ27. This is your J27. And to be specific, in the catalog, it's specified as a J27M. I need to check the catalog again. I forget sometimes. I think the M stands for either men's or mouton. As you can see, all of them have like the snaps to attach a mouton collar. This is a J27. This is what the back looks like. Again, kind of like that, that longer, more motorcycle oriented, stay down back. This model right here, these guys are, true motorcycle gear. I definitely call Buco true motorcycle jackets. These J24s are, they're really, really cool looking and definitely good on a motorcycle. But this one, this is a size 36. And I don't know if it's just the sizing on me, but this one seems a lot more functional, a lot more comfortable on a motorcycle. Maybe because of the fact that these were used by policemen, because the cut is a bit different. It's not the same cut as the J24. They're really, really, really nice, really comfortable. So I did show you the J82, which I think fits better than J24 and potentially is even cooler looking than the J24. It has that deep pocket, but it's just a little bit different. And again, they just fit shorter. These fit small. This one is a size 40. This one's pretty beat up. This one is almost mint, but it's missing a label, but practically mint. It looks brand new. And this one's a bit small, probably a size 34. It's really small. And this one's a size 40, but I can still wear it layered. And yeah, these are just such cool jackets. fit really, really, really nice. You'll notice sometimes they have like the 2 dome bars on the epaulette. Most of them just have 1. All right. So another kind of like difference in some of these jackets. Again, this is a mint one. This is what the back looks like, by the way. So again, a very kind of a simple back, but just very comfortable. They're both steer hide. There's different versions of the steer hide, by the way. The older, this is probably 1954, 1955. Kind of has like a gray core. The later steer hides like this and this have a brown core that fade very, very quickly. And this kind of version of steer hide is super high quality. It's thick, can almost be confused for horse hide, and it's just really, really, really nice. Wears well. I had a J81 that I sold to a friend of mine because it was big, and it was this exact leather, but it was in really good condition. It was some of the best leather that I've ever, really some of the best leather that I've ever had, even though it was steer hide, not horse hide. So moving on, this right here is just your classic Buco J100 racing shirt. This is an earlier one that's unlined, size 38, with the 4th horsehide Buco tag. You can see there's double stitching around the pockets. You have this kind of like welt in the main zipper, double stitching around the sleeve zips. And that's not something you see on the later versions. Even the horsehide, there's a later horsehide version with a liner, and then the most of the ones you see are the later 50s ones with the steer hide label and then the black quilt lining. They do not have all that double stitching detail. And then last but not least, this is like my newest acquisition. You can see a completely different design. This one is a J71, although I've never seen this one in a catalog, but the closest model to it is the J71. This kind of model line started with the JH1, which is a very, very early one. It had the first white Buco tag, and then it evolved into the J65, which kind of looks like this, doesn't have epaulets. It would have a black, the red and black wool liner with a 2nd generation label. Then it evolved into the J72, which kind of looks like this, but it has a fixed mouton collar. And it's funny that the J72 came out before the J71, which would be this, just in horsehide. A lot of them do not have these pocket welts, so it's like just the zipper teeth are exposed, and this piece, which is called a welt, is not present. That's what most of the J71s look like. It kind of looks cheap in my opinion, but and then this would be just an evolution of that. This is probably very late 50s or early 60s. You know, it's kind of very thin, cheaper steer hide. Not the best. I mean, it's still nice leather. It's very comfortable to wear, but it's just not as nice as even like these steer hides. So again, just another, and almost you can kind of see it, how it's like almost like very very thin, kind of very floppy. So just another example of how the leather varied, whether it's the early horsehide, some of them are just super heavy, super thick, and some of them from the same year are just going to be a little thinner. Same with the steer hides. Some of these Bucos, you'll find like pretty big flaws in them as far as like the construction and everything. Some of them are more neatly constructed, but for the most part, they're very, very high quality jackets, and I definitely recommend Of course, I always recommend to try in person if you can, because again, these vary so wildly, and if you buy on eBay and you don't have like a lot of experience buying, it can be a bit of a challenge to kind of assess the condition. And you know, from my experience, a lot of eBay sellers, you know, they don't know really how to measure well, so it's a bit of a crapshoot. And they're pretty expensive. It's kind of hard to find them for less than $1,000. Sometimes you'll find them for like, you know, $850, $900, and those typically sell pretty quickly. The ones that are like around $1,500 tend to sit. But if you can find like a good condition one, like this one is really, really good condition. It's in, I wouldn't call it mint, but it's in excellent condition. If you can find one like this, I think it's easily worth $1,500. I kind of say this all the time because, you know, the real McCoys reproduced this jacket, and I actually have one. I have the J24, the real McCoys, and well, the leather is great, the construction is amazing. They really use shitty hardware, and they're like brand new, like $2,500. I think you're better off to get a vintage one for like $1,500, to be honest. You're gonna be cooler, they're gonna fit better, and you know, these vintage Talons, like they last forever. They're really, really nice. So that is it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully you'll tune in for the next one. Thank you.